understand the normal behaviour of cows so that we can work with them, not against them. If a cow can be a cow, she'll be content. In this part of the video, we'll try and see what feels safe for a cow, how she normally behaves, and how she can be trained. If we can understand how the cow thinks and behaves, then we can easily see how to adapt facilities and our own behaviour to this. So let's start with what we know about the cow herself. First of all, let's consider the individual animal and her physical characteristics. An individual cow is large and heavy. She is not very athletic, so she is not very fast moving. Some people expect fast movement. However, cows usually walk at about 2 to 4 kilometers per hour. Because she is large, she has a large turning circle. Check out your facilities. They should be designed as if the cow were a truck and trailer. The cow likes flat surfaces. She can handle slopes up and down, but not sideways. Cows will feel unsafe and tend to refuse to walk on unstable, too steep or slippery surfaces. Cows will tend to face uphill if the slope of the yard is more than 3 or 4%. This shed drops 1 metre for every 30 metres. If your yard is slightly downhill, it doesn't matter as long as it's not too steep. When a cow is walking normally and unrestricted, the back foot follows the front in a full stride. It is always more comfortable for a cow to be allowed to walk normally. But if cows are bunched together too tightly, pushed too fast, or if the surface is slippery or too steep, their stride changes. A cow generally keeps her head down to maintain balance, to see where she's putting her feet, and for damage control. To handle a stone under her foot, the cow lifts or lowers her head depending on which foot is affected. They need plenty of head space to be able to do this. A cow has quite a wide angle of vision, but directly behind is a blind spot. If she has head space, moving her head just slightly side to side enables her to see what is in this blind spot. In summary then, the most important things to remember when designing and using facilities with cows is to first allow for their size by giving them space for turning and space for their heads. Second, allow for their speed. Allow them to be stately. Third, allow for their comfort and safety, especially with non-slip surfaces and safe slopes. The dairy cow has been bred to have a fairly quiet temperament and has predictable patterns of behaviour. Working within these behaviours makes a good relationship between cow and stockman. A cow has a personal space or flight zone. She likes to keep all threats, including people, out of this zone. In a dairy herd, the flight distance might be up to about 3 to 5 metres in the milking yard, but can be virtually non-existent if the cows are very tame and have never been hurt. If a person is inside this zone, a cow will try to escape, according to the position of the person, either forwards or backwards. If a person is outside this zone, the cow will turn to look at them. However, If there is a bar or fence between you and the cow, she will feel more secure and so will not turn away so readily. Looking a cow in the eye, however, effectively penetrates its personal space. She will act as though you are closer. She will feel threatened. This often happens when a person appears suddenly coming out of the milking parlour. Looking at this person, you can see how he is standing on the left, well away from the personal space of the cows going into the right-hand side of the milking parlour. A cow normally walks forward, but she's always looking out for anything threatening. Going backwards means that a cow is trying to escape from or avoid something, maybe slippery concrete, a dominant cow, or a frightening person or noise. The direction in which she escapes is dictated by her balance points. First, the shoulder. In order to escape, a cow goes forward away from the person who is standing behind the shoulder, and vice versa. She goes backwards to escape someone who is in front. That is why, in order to get a cow to walk forward, we walk past it, going towards its rear, that is, in the opposite direction to the one in which you want it to go. It works the other way too. Overtaking a cow will make her stop and even back up as you pass her shoulder. The backbone is the second balance point and controls side-to-side movement. If you're standing behind a cow, you can cause her to move forward to the left by standing to the right of her midline, and vice versa. Standing directly behind her in the blind spot is stressful. Simply operating on the edge of her personal space and using these balance points is sufficient to move cows gently. I'm not sure whether a cow can think, but they certainly know what is normal and are often upset by something out of the ordinary. This could be an unexpected sight, for example, changes in the colour of overalls, or an unexpected event like this burst hose, clothes over a fence, the appearance of milk testing equipment, or a different person in the milking parlour. You can see how a new board to record bulling cows placed at the bale entrance to the milking parlour has upset the cow flow. The cow needs time to get used to any changes. It could be an unexpected or sudden sound that frightens the cow. For example, shouts, tapping on pipework. Cows are very sensitive to high-pitched sounds, like the vacuum regulator at the entrance to this parlour. On the other hand, cows respond positively to quiet, continuous sound. For example, gentle radio, pulsators, or gentle talking. A cow doesn't like sudden movement, such as dogs, flapping aprons, or people suddenly appearing out of a doorway. Dark entranceways, where the cow can't see where she is going, are frightening. For example, into a dark milking parlour. Because a cow is large and heavy, she needs to be sure of her footing. The most often encountered frightening thing for a cow is a slippery surface. Look how a heifer goes up on her toes when frightened, and a cow settles back on her heels. Half-round nibs to slip off or stray electricity can be equally frightening. Most frightening of all, however, for a cow is the head of the higher dominance cow. She is more afraid of this than a person or a dog when being herded on a track, or when waiting in the yard to come on to be milked. So we need to give them enough space to escape from the bigger, bossy cows. In summary, we need to keep everything as cow-friendly as possible. Try to eliminate frightening experiences and remove any threats that might be upsetting to your cows. A cow has a good memory. She knows the entire milking routine, right down to which side of a herringbone shed she likes best. She is a creature of habit. Changes of routine will confuse her, so therefore we need to try and maintain the same routines every day with no surprises. Then she can relax. But the cow is teachable. She can be taught to adjust. Every day is a training experience for the cow, either good or bad. To learn routines may take time, even weeks, but it's worth the training. They will learn. Unfortunately, cows also remember bad experiences. For example, hitting, bending tails, shouting, injury to hips on pipework. They remember where, when, and with whom it happened. To re-establish confidence might take weeks. Cows will try to avoid that situation for a long time. For example, cows won't want to come to the front bale of a herringbone shed if they have had a bad experience there, or caught their jaw on an upright pipe. Cows recognise people, good and bad, maybe by smell, for example smoking, voice, or colour of clothing, and they also enjoy human contact, such as stroking or rubbing, resting a hand on their back, or kind talking. A good idea is to talk to and handle your cows like young children, gently and patiently. We've been looking at the behaviour of the individual animal, but the cow is a herd animal. So let's now look at herd behaviour. Cows like to be with other cows, and they like to maintain visual contact with other herd mates most of the time. So it follows that separating a single animal is stressful. Instead, keep them with a group. They like to be close, but not forced up against other cows in the herd. They don't like sideways bumping. It puts them off balance and reduces their ability to escape from more dominant cows. Individual cows behave differently when tightly packed. This depends upon whether the cow is higher or lower on the pecking order. Heifers, which are usually lower dominance, will pull backwards away from older cows, while higher dominance cows will push forward against and among other cows. This behaviour you'll only see if you have cows too tightly together or push too hard. Cows are followers. They naturally follow the leader going forward, even across open spaces in paddocks or on wide tracks. If the leader will start walking, the rest will follow. This is especially useful when we want the cows to go in a particular direction. It is better to allow a cow to lead rather than force them from behind. There is a fairly definite pecking order in the herd. The dominant cows may be different cows to the leader cows. 50% of the dominant cows are in the front third of the herd. The rest are spread fairly evenly throughout the herd, in the middle, and even among the rear group. These dominant cows control the herd walking speed. Dominant cows draw cows behind them and push cows in front as they move forward. This is what we call the push-pull effect. If a dominant cow stops, the cow behind will also stop. She doesn't want to overtake and risk a fight. The cows in front will also stop as they can see that the dominant cow has stopped and is no longer pushing them along. They don't want to break up the herd. Cows have surprisingly wide vision, almost 300 degrees. When the dominant cow decides that it is time to move on, she catches up to the one in front, who has stopped, and nudges her along by coming into her flight zone, or even with a well-placed headbutt. And the one behind continue to follow. If a cow is moved from one herd to another, her dominance position needs to be established and stabilized. This will be the same when a cow joins the herd. For example, when it is newly calved. She will need to find her place. This is usually established within 2 weeks. Challenges to the pecking order are going on all the time in a herd between cows of similar dominance. We need to remember this. There is a walking order and a milking order in a herd, and they are different. Cows walk into the milking yard in one order and leave the milking parlour in a different order. Look how these cows are rearranging themselves. Cows arriving at the milking parlour need time and space to readjust from a walking order to a milking order before we move the gates to restrict the space allowed. Don't push cows so close together that they can't escape if need be, or so they can't find themselves a pathway through the herd. These are just the normal basic cow behaviours. If we understand basic cow behaviour, it'll help us work with the cow rather than against her. In the next part of the video, I want to apply this understanding of cow behaviour to cow flow in the different parts of the facilities and right through the dairy system.